Sabay dito sa Koisua, Curious Koy Majak, BV 8 to 12, and we'll be discussing about values education in Laos. The Lao Laom actually had the history of using formal education, but in the mid-20th century, they are primarily based their teaching on the Buddhist Wat, where the monk taught novices and boys to read both Lao and Pali scripts, basic arithmetics, and other religious and social subjects. But unfortunately, only ordained male in their urban monasteries had the privilege to advance study, leaving the women behind. And they have seen that there is a need for them to invest in education. That is why there were educational reforms that happened to equip and prepare their young people with a scientific world point of view, value of patriotism, and a sense of solidarity with the aim to educate their citizens to become good, loyal, strengthen their national education system for them to have a better results in their students' learning outcome, and train them to be skilled to the labor force. Anchored to this philosophy, their goals is to build good citizens that can recognize their rights, duties, interests, and are able to preserve and promote the finest national tradition culture. Also, according to their National Socio-Economic Development Plan of 2006 to 2010, education is one of the most crucial priority of their four pillar and the poverty reduction strategy. That includes building a workforce that is both knowledgeable and competent when implementing development policies and programs, and has to have the capability to apply the results in modern science and technologies for the betterment and benefit for the Lao society.
So the values in focus for the Laos Values Education Curriculum are that they teach their students the value of nationalism and patriotism in order to shape and develop a good citizens who are loyal to the country and to the people's democratic regime, while also equipping them with the necessary knowledge and skills to become well-disciplined individuals who will advocate and recognize the rights of the people, their duties to preserve the cultural heritage, and become ethically guided and responsible individuals to establish a professional working personality. Lastly, they are also focused on teaching the value of solidarity in order for the students to become accepting of the multicultural differences that they may encounter in the work field in other friendly and neighboring countries as they begin their professional life.
The typical lab classroom appears to be strongly structured through lesson planning and instructional time. In principle, teachers place great emphasis on thinking skills and problem solving. In practice, the primary method of instruction, for example in Lao or PDR schools, is frontal lecturing, copying lessons on the blackboard, and encouraging recitation and memorization. Here they use the teaching learning process and integrative as their approach. As we all know, in the teaching learning process, the teacher assesses, understands needs, establishes particular learning objectives, formulates teaching and memorizing strategies, enforces a plan of work, and assesses the outcomes of the instruction. Since they use integrative as their approach, it enables children to acquire and use basic skills in all the content areas and to develop positive attitude for continued successful learning. Teachers and educators here emphasize the relevance of the students' activities in teaching, which includes activities like group working, question topics, using materials, and matching lessons with the real-life environment. Teachers and learners here must be both knowledgeable with basic concepts of the topic and be prepared to apply these ideas in a range of settings. With that, it will encourage innovation and people's in-depth understanding of the subject.
Years have passed, and in the mid-20th century, their education was still anchored in Buddhism. The education was based after Buddhism. Their way of teaching also encompasses the Buddhist teaching. In pre-primary education, a way of preparing their children is through physically, emotionally, socially, and mentally to enter grade 1 in having a stable mind. The set of objectives for pre-primary students is to have a great discipline or to develop their socialization, to adapt from one another, and to become unique person they could be by honing their skills, strength, and capabilities. Moving on to the primary education, the current sector development provides a planning framework to MOE or the Ministry of Education. Their goal is to improve student achievement of every primary schoolers for us to have a product of a best improved and quality of education. By that, different training for teachers has begun, and also it is also a way to establish the Teacher Development Center. And lastly, the university. Lao only has 2 university and 3 institutions and 1 nation university, the National University of Laos or the NUOL, which is very prominent in accepting top students from across the world. Even though schools or universities that can be seen in Laos is few from what we have seen in different countries, as they once built in Buddhism teaching, we can see that how value is very necessary for them to instill in every student for their educational process.